Hi, everybody. Welcome to another episode of Dr. Cammy Goes Keto, where I'm here with Mike Collins. I'm working on transitioning from a standard American diet to a ketogenic lifestyle and pulling off of sugar and flour and working on my caffeine. And I am here today with Mike, and we're going to talk a little bit about what's been going on with me and my sugar. But I did just want to say thank you for being here, Mike, and for everything that you do for helping all of us work to get off of the sugar. Mike has No Sugar Nation, which is where I go and hang out with all of my no sugar buddies to get support and to get love and to get ideas about how to manage life. And he is also the sugardetox.com man. He's putting on wonderful summits that come through that are free, that are giving so much good information into this world and accurate and scientifically based and all kinds of wonderful speakers. So I'm just really grateful that I ran into you in my life. So thank you so much for being here with me today.
Hey, it's always a pleasure. I enjoy these conversations.
I'm not looking so forward to this one, but one of the things that I do have is accountability and honesty in my program. And I went off to Lake Tahoe with my girlfriend from pre-med. We've known each other since college, and we had such a great time. And we went all over Lake Tahoe. It was absolutely beautiful. And we went in the cold plunge. Mike, you would be so proud of me. We did the cold plunge and we went into the sauna until we got hot. And then we went and plunged in and it was 39 degrees in the water. And we went all the way down, all the way underneath with our hair and everything. And we did it 3 different times in the sauna, in the water, in the sauna, in the water. It was so fun. And I wasn't sure if I was going to do it, but my girlfriend went first and she just went running in and she's like, "Come on, Kim." Cammy, so I did it, and it was just really super fun. But one of the things I did manage to do after I got back from my trip, well, we ate really well on our trip. We went to the grocery store and bought a bunch of protein and some vegetables and eggs and things like that. And then I did get a little bit of sugar in there because I was eating the bacon that was at the hotel. I was eating scrambled eggs and bacon, and I knew there was a little bit of sugar in there. So I got a little bit of sugar into my system. It was not a lot. But then on the last day of our trip, I ate some sugar. I ate granola and I ate some oatmeal with a little bit of granola in it and some coconut flakes, which probably had sugar on them. And it wasn't a lot, but I think it was enough. And some of it was a feeling of belonging because my girlfriend was like, "Well, you don't have to be so strenuous with your sugar." And, and then I believed her and then things happened we walked into one of the hotels and they had some baked sugar items sitting out on this beautiful tray ready for people to eat and a beverage to drink that was loaded with sugar. And I didn't eat, I just looked at it and I thought, "Oh, that's not for me. That's not my food. I'm not going to eat that." But part of me wanted my girlfriend to eat it so I could live vicariously through her and, just watch somebody eat this, thing. And she didn't do that. And so, that kind of aggravated me a little bit. And I just am noticing so that I still have a lot of noise around the sugar and the food. So I ate the oatmeal and then I came home from the trip and proceeded to eat sugar for the next 2.5 days. And now I'm off of the sugar, but it's been this is day number 2 or whatever. So I'm still feeling soaked in it. And I'm just feeling really bad. I'm sad. I have some grieving over it. I'm frustrated. I'm angry. I'm embarrassed. I have shame and guilt over it. And, it is what it is. And I've been trying to think about, my feelings and what is it that I try to hide with this sugar and a sense of false Cammy. There's this real Cammy and then there's this real Cammy. And the world sees Cammy one way, but the real Cammy is a little bit different. I think that's part of it. But I am just, I'm trying to look at the things that have happened that are good. I had gone 92 days and then I was off. I was kind of off for a couple of months. I was trying to get back on plan and then I got back on plan and felt really like part of the no matter what club and I'm unstoppable. And I probably went close to 50 days. This was probably around 50 days that I just did this thing. And so now I'm 2 days, back into it and feeling like I can be off of this sugar and flour and caffeine now without instead of going like 2 months to get back in. So I feel like I'm getting more and more days that are successful under my belt and less time out there, because it feels to me like it's a place I go out there and do these things.
Another land?
Yeah, it's like another land. It's another place. It's a world out there. And that's why I try to spend time in my house because when I'm in my home, I have healthy food. I don't have anything in here. I got, from these last 2 days, everything's out. And I have healthy food that's cooked and protein and fats, healthy fats. Everything's here and available and ready to eat. And I'm eating those foods and feeling fine. But, I'm craving sweets and I think that I'm starving. I'm on the Zep bound and, just binging right through it, which is another whole aggravation of mine.
So, what do you think? Do you have any idea of what you were trying to numb for 2 days? I mean, let's set aside the little bits you got in with the granola and bacon to kind of start triggering. I mean, it could just be straight biochemical. But what was going on with you for 2.5 days that you didn't reach out to anyone or you didn't use some of the tools that you have? What was any thoughts there?
I'm trying to think about what, there's obviously stuff there. I mean, there's obviously stuff there that sends me out, but it's hard for me to let myself go to where those parts of me are. And when I'm out there, I'm out. I am fully and completely, totally checked out. And I have, options to reach out I know exactly what to do. And I have all of the framework for it to do it. I have the people's phone numbers. I have the meetings to go to. I have my OA sponsor. I have, things I know exactly what to do. But once I make a decision to be out, I'm out and I won't do those things. I won't come back in. And then when I'm out there, it's kind of like, do what I can to get this over with so that I can get back into my other, sugar-free life because that's the life that I really want.
I can relate with the just get it over with stuff, but can you actually touch on the numbing? Is there a way, like, how do you feel? I would think by now, and I think you would probably agree with this intellectually, but I want to know emotionally that the work that you've done so far, the healing that you've done, all of the understanding of how to do this and the nuances required to do it, it wouldn't make eating sugar for 2 days very much fun. It doesn't seem like it would be enjoyable for the amount of guilt you would feel. I want to get this over feeling, all of the feelings that would be arising as you're doing it. And so what I want to know is what are the tangential and underlying feelings? It's an older construct, but it's still valid and it just hasn't talked about much, is that the shame is the payoff. That this idea that we know the devil we know versus the devil we don't, and returning us from a glorious 5 days with our friend where we were close enough to, or we had recovered after 30 or 45 days of biochemical repair so that we felt good most of the time. And then, there's such thing as like trip depression, like depression from trips like that, where you want to go back and continue that life, whatever. But what I'm getting at here is what are the tangential, moreover, the correct word is the underlying shame when you're ingesting these 2 days alone. What are you feeling like? What's going on with you? Because, you're down in that spiral. Were you able to access some of the other stuff? Were there thoughts that came up or feelings that came up during that time? The whole shame is the payoff thing is so interesting and so counterintuitive and intellectually, but What do you think? What are your thoughts there?
So I knew that I tend to do this when I go, like when I'm going to be with somebody for a long period of time where I have witnesses, right? This is kind of like old behavior and old thoughts because, I go through my life and I'm alone a lot. I'm not in a relationship right now and I'm not working right now. So I spend a lot of time alone and I can be successful and trust myself, right? Like, I'm going through, 40 days, 50 days, no sugar, no flour, minimal caffeine. I'm doing the deal. I'm frustrated because 'cause I'm not losing weight or, I'm not things aren't co but I can function and do it. But there's something about being with somebody where I'm gonna be witnessed and I'm gonna be with somebody and I don't have the option, right? If I'm gonna look good, it has to do with looking a certain way and how I look versus how I really feel. It has something to do with that because so before the trip, I'm like, okay, don't blow this, don't go eat a bunch of crappy junky food before you're gonna go be with someone.
Quick clarity, how you look to others or how you look physically?
How I look to others,
Okay, go ahead.
of which physically is part of that. But mostly like how I represent myself in the world. And so I did really great before the trip. I didn't have any big binges or anything before I left to be with my girlfriend for 5 days. But coming back, I just didn't pull it off. And so it was like, okay, I'm not being watched anymore. I don't have a witness.
Right.
I can go and be and do whatever I want. And then the voice, and then the eating voice, comes back. Like, I think that small amount of the getting the sugar in with the bacon, I don't know. I feel like the physical part, like opening that door just a tiny
Yeah,
bit,
I
gets
agree.
that voice in there because the voice is like ether, right? It's thin. It's like smoke. It can get into a small place. And as soon as I let the door open enough for that voice to kind of get in, and it's so patient. It's just sitting back out there, like we say in AA, doing push-ups, just waiting for the right opportunity. And, like I feel like it might be, 50 days, it might be 2 years, it might be whatever. It just is going to wait for the opportunity for me to do that. And then the door opens and then it has something to do with how I portray myself in the world versus how I really feel about myself.
Okay, this is good. Keep going. Tell me more.
Well, I just think it goes back to feeling defective because I'm not perfect and, realizing that this humanness part, which is what I'm trying so hard to be now, like on this video saying, "Hey, I'm human, I fucked it up again." But I know I'm not the only one out there doing this. I know I'm not the only one who struggles with this. This is why I'm here because I'm not the only one who was raised in a way to think that you're defective if you're not perfect. And I didn't realize that till I hit my 20s. I'm like, "Oh, shit, man, I can do this for the rest of my life and try to try my hardest to be perfect, but I'm never going to be perfect. But I'm going to keep trying my hardest. I'm going to keep trying my hardest." And I think I still do that. And so I think some of it is like, not some of it's lack of acceptance of who I really am and how I am in this world. And I think that really it's like, I'm okay. Like, I'm pretty cool, even though I fuck up and I'm human and I'm not perfect and my heart is in a good spot, like pretty much all the time, except when I do this stuff that's so destructive to myself physically and mentally and emotionally, that's not good. But
Yeah.
I think it goes, go ahead.
Well, what I was going to say is, I mean, obviously, it's just one of the tools in your toolkit is this kind of awareness to be kind and gentle to yourself. And it's easier said than done. Anyone can say that, but when you are shame based, which is the kind of technical term for what we're talking about here a little bit, is and if shame is the payoff, this return to the devil know versus the devil you don't, and to the state that you were, basically grew up on and grew up with and used sugar and then alcohol and stuff to numb out, to just really what I think what people are looking for when they use sugar is just to shut that voice up just for a few minutes and then it starts to come back and you re-ingest and it ends into a vicious, never-ending cycle. And I think you're aware of it intellectually, but as I've said many times in this work, what we have to do is we have to make it something that's visceral and something that you feel, something that you really get when it and the process is the discovery process, the awareness process, and the reversal and the change process to identify it every time, you know? You identify it sometimes, whatever, you're able to catch yourself when things are good, when you're alone, when things are, your diet's good and you've been 30 or 45 days and you have a little thought, you just kind of identify it, your biochemistry. Because really, I do believe that I love it. I don't know how I'm going to steal it, but this idea that it's like an ether or like a smoke and it kind of sneaks in. You get a little bacon, a little granola, and now your biochemistry is a little bit off, and you kept those cravings alive. You lit those cravings up again, right? And you must have felt some sort of along with the elation and the joy and the fun of the trip, you must have felt some insecurities around maybe some successes your friend had or whatever. It doesn't matter what it is. What matters is that you didn't make that awareness that might lead to little bits of using or a big binge on for 2 days when you get back. They wouldn't, it wouldn't it isn't set in your standard operating procedure, your procedures, your methods of processing all this stuff. And when that happens, when you get to that point where you're like, "Nah," I always akin it, and I've been using this lately, I akin it to meditation or attempting to meditate, right? And so in attempting to meditate, what you're doing is your monkey mind is running like a million miles a mile, and you have to return to the breath. You have to return to focusing on the in and the out of the breath. And then it'll go off on another tangent about work, kids, or whatever. And then you have to return to the breath. You can't focus on it. You can't try and resist it. You just acknowledge it and return to the breath. And this is the same thing with this process that you're learning, right? When little bits of it come up, one little shame comes up, little, depression or I'm not good enough is really the main term you're looking
Mhm.
for. I'm not worthy, but I'm not good enough. I'm not perfect.
I'm
And that-
not okay who I am.
I'm not okay as who I am. And that's got 100 tangents, right? 100, paths off of that exact saying there. Then you have to say, back to the breath, which means in this context, back to the work, back to calling people. Even though I'm on vacation, I call Mike, I call my friend, I call Nikki, I call somebody and say, damn, I had some bacon this morning, or whatever it is. And you start using the tools, right? Immediately. And the same thing when you're home alone and this is, full bore, right? Because we don't wanna recognize it, because if we recognize it, we'd have to stop it, and that the emotional salve, the emotional soothing of sugar is so powerful that it'll shut it down for a while, you know? And that's been our go-to forever, and without raising it to the conscious level, we never get rid of it. We just keep doing it unconsciously, right?
Yeah, I think you bring up a really important point because I think when I was on this trip, I was out of my usual physical existence and it was absolutely gorgeous and beautiful up there. And I decided, I think I just said, well, I'm not going to be somebody who has an eating issue.
Good line, yeah.
And I'm just going to pretend like I don't have these problems. And so then I didn't do the upkeep of it. Of my recovery. I didn't keep it up. I wasn't calling people. I wasn't praying in the morning. I wasn't reaching out. I wasn't keeping a food diary. I wasn't all my tools just I left my tool bag at home because I'm on vacation. And then
Purposely, purposely.
I yeah, and then I got into all kinds of trouble. And there wasn't a lot of environmental stimuli there because I was with my girlfriend and she's a real good healthy eater and she doesn't have the issues with food that I do. And so yeah, and then when I got home, I didn't pick up my tool bag.
And you had a little bit of, cravings lit up from the stuff that you got.
Yeah, yeah, and the other thing that you brought up that, the thing, like, that I brought up about, like, not being okay with who I am, and it frustrates the hell out of me because I'm okay, but I judge and compare myself to others all day long, all the time. And I'm so aware of that now. And it's hard to eliminate. It's hard to change that up. I'm noticing that acceptance of who people are and of who I am is a tough one for me because I judge and criticize myself. I compare myself to others and this and that and this and that and this and that. And which was a really strong drive for me to become a doctor and a surgeon because it's kind of like that's an automatic, like, that chick is smart, that chick, there's a certain amount of things that just come automatic when people find out that's what you do for a living. And, it like justified my existence, right? Like I save lives, literally. Okay, your existence is justified. But it's like in my family growing up, it was like there was this really strong drive to just justify, like, my existence,
I can relate. I can relate. I understand it.
and I
Yeah,
know we're not the only 2 ones, Mike, right? Like, we're
everybody. At some level, the same thing.
yeah.
Yeah. That, doesn't you don't have to be a doctor or whatever. You get the whole say, "What do you do for a living?" So, I'm a doctor," and they're like, "Oh, really?" That's the response, right? "Oh, really?" Like, they're impressed immediately, right?
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, no, here's the problem, okay? You get all this intellectually, and you are still allowing the underlying both chemical and emotional biology to run the show, right?
Mhm.
You're defaulting to the old easy button, the old quick fix, the old short circuit those feelings of unworthiness, not enoughness, and even, to some level, the pain or grieving that you may still need to process, whatever. But all of it is being quickly short circuited using a process that was no fault of your own, a ubiquitously and simply available your whole life, which is just ingest something that will shut it down. And you don't even think to yourself, well, I'm not feeling worthy and my girlfriend's thin and my girlfriend's or and it just happens. It's an automatic reflex. And our job is to bring that to the conscious level.
Well, I have to say that some of the time I do notice it. Some of the times I'll notice, like, when I'm judging and comparing it, and I'll be like, "Oh, look what's going on," because when we were on our trip, we started reading this book, The Untethered Soul.
Okay.
I don't know, do you know this book?
What's the author? Michael?
His name's Michael Singer.
I've actually heard of the book, but I've never read it.
It's an unbelievable book. It's very hard for me to comprehend, but we were reading it together and, like, reading every other paragraph together because she had her copy and I had my copy, and we're like, "Oh, let's bring this book." And so it was talking about consciousness and you're being conscious of what your thoughts and feelings are. And so, like, we're reading this book together. So on the trip, I'm paying attention to, like, what that inner voice, your roommate, they call it, that's in there and what they say.
Okay.
And it was like, wow, look at her. She has tight jeans on and she looks pretty good. Oh, look at this. Oh, look at that. She goes into the cold water before I do, and I was afraid I might not do it. Oh, this and that, on and on and on.
Okay.
Um, so I was aware of of when I do this, but then I don't respond to it in a healthy way. Like, instead of saying, "Gee, Cammy, that's okay," going to little Cammy, I think, is what I need to learn how to do, and soothing little Cammy and going to little Cammy and saying, "You know what? That's perfectly fine to be that way, to think those things in this situation with your history and where you are." Instead of being like, "What's the matter with you that you think this way? You're defective."
Yeah, I always thought that the inner child work was a little woo woo, but now I really embrace it. I think it's so important to kind of understand where the patterns came from and why they evolved, right? So and you can revisit and reform the coping mechanism, you know,
in a healthier way.
a healthier way, the coping mechanism that has now turned against you physically and a lot of other ways. As a young baby or child, it wasn't that big a deal. Shut it up. Your parents are arguing, you sneak away with a candy bar and all is good for a few minutes. But that doesn't work anymore and it doesn't solve anything and it compounds upon itself of the things you're not working through.
Yeah. But, I think I just need to be okay. One of the big things I need to work on is being okay with who I am
Yeah.
and having these, like, because like when I used to drink, I had my drinking life and my non-drinking life. Right? And the 2 shall never mix. Like in my job, I never went to work drunk. I never was tipsy. I just couldn't. And so I never drank until I had the opportunity where I didn't have to drive my kids. I didn't have to do anything, all those things. And so my bottom is pretty high. That's what we say in AA, right? I didn't get a DUI. I didn't get in trouble. I just was a really good binge drinker when I could get it done and out of the way. And now here I am doing it, the same darn thing with sugar. And so, but when I quit drinking, those 2 lives, my life became one, right? My life became one sober life where I didn't have the drinking in there. And that's what I'm in the process of doing with this life right now with the sugar is that I have one life and my one life is not going to have the sugar in it.
Yeah, but you're missing a step in there, you know, the old put the plug in the jug thing and don't hang out with old friends thing, is that you were able to separate those 2 lives in a way that, you couldn't do it for your job or for safety reasons, but you can use sugar and not have those same issues
Well, that's why I'm flailing.
on the surface, you know what I
That's
mean?
why I'm struggling so much, and it just blows my mind. Like people are like, oh, 4 years without sugar. I'm like, God, am I ever going to get there?
You're gonna get there, I guarantee it. The woman that I described that I want you to watch the movies, hers was not I mean, for her to break down, um, it was hard. For her to even not understand it, I think she understood it, but intellectually, for her to get there, to get to the deeper processing, um, that took some time. It took
That's where I feel like I am. I'm trying to get to this deeper stuff. And boy, it's like cement and it doesn't want like I'm trying to scratch the surface with my fingernail and like what I really need is like a jackhammer, you know? It's kind of like
good analogy.
trying to get that because I'm just really good about being defensive about it and saying, well, I don't.
Well, you don't seem defensive about it. I mean, I think you're super aware of it. It's that I think in your case of cutting slack for yourself, you're cutting slack in the wrong places. You're cutting slack that, what did you say? I'm not going to be a person has a food issue on this vacation, right? Instead of cutting your slack there, you should be cutting your slack like, I got to get this right. But you got to be like, okay, I desire it. So I'm going to be kind to myself and go get a manicure or go get a massage or something. That's the difference, is to change the behavior that is soothing, that's self soothing, right? And that's how you should be nice to yourself or cut yourself some slack or be kind to yourself. The different tools that are stay basically creating the same dopamine, serotonin, norepinephrine, GABA. I mean, it creates the same reward chemicals. It's just not that substance. And it also beyond that, creates a new pattern when these feelings arise. Because you can't handle them all at once, no matter what they are. You got to take breaks, and in those breaks, you need these other soothing methods. And again, this is the hard part. We know these things intellectually in our brain. We're knowledgeable about them. It's the linchpins or the golden keys where you identify them and act on them, and you don't allow any like wiggle room. You identify it. This is what this is. You don't judge it like the meditation. You don't judge that shit. I can't meditate because I keep thinking about this. That's not useful and it doesn't work. Period. It just doesn't work. You have to just, they say, let it float on by. You acknowledge it only that it exists, not giving it any power, and then return to the breath. And this is the same thing. You acknowledge that I'm feeling a little less than, you know, and then you return to a tool, whatever that tool is. There's a bunch of tools. It's not just returning to the breath. In this case, it's returning to, I'm going to make a quick call or I'm going to do whatever.
Yeah. Yeah. And at least now I'm at the point where I have the awareness that it's going on. Because like before, I just would be, 2 days into eating sugar and I'd be like, "Ah, why am I doing this?" Now I at least have the awareness before I even act on it with some of my unhealthy behaviors, I can see it. And so that's really, I'm pleased about that because then I can go, "Oh, look." And I even like did that. Like when I was like, "Oh, look, she looks cute in her jeans." And I said to myself, "You know what, Cammy? You don't have to go there. You don't have to have shame and guilt. You don't have to beat yourself up over this, that she has on her tight little jeans and has all her curves in the right spots and everything. You can just love who you are and, accept, that you're doing the best you can to take good care of yourself."
Yeah, I mean, what you're circling is super important. And I think I think I'm going to help, it's going to help me in adding this to some folks in counseling and stuff is like, it's the identification process of identifying, what they in meditation call the monkey mind, and realize that that's not the enemy. That's not bad. It just is. And yours is a pattern that's been, 50, 60 years in the making, and it exists. And you just have to, take a deep breath and identify it. And then, quote unquote, instead of returning to the breath, you return to another tool of your recovery, whatever that is. There's a million ways. But it is the identification and the acceptance that it's nothing more than that. That's all it is. It's just, thanks, my I'm not worthy voice. I mean, I hate these guys and I don't see efficacy in their work, but there's a guy named, what is his name? Rational Recovery. I'll think of it in a minute. But there's offshoots, brain over binge, where they name these people, they name these parts of their body like a terrible name, like the binge monster or the slop monster or something. They name that as a bad part of them. And I don't agree with that. But the underlying construct of identifying it clearly, identifying their Jack Trimby, that's the guy's name. Identifying it clearly so that you can delineate it and take other actions that don't include food. You know what I mean? And
Mm.
and it's continued. I think it's a perfect analogy that your monkey mind acts up. I don't care if you're 10 years into meditating, you're going to float off into work or the kids or something and have to remind yourself to return to the breath. And this is the same thing. It's not so much, and also not judge it, not judge the monkey,
Right, right.
not judge the I'm not worthy thought or whatever tangent that runs there. You know what I mean? And so then, you just keep identifying it and return to the tools, return to the positive things. And if you can keep doing that each time, and I think witnessing is important. I think, calling people is super important and just saying it out loud. Geez, I had this, because it's a terrible, stupid feeling to call somebody up and say, "Oh, this woman looked good in her jeans, man." And it's like, I was happy for her, but I, really want my butt to look like that or whatever it is. You know what I mean? Yeah.
And I have like all these friends in my sugar addiction group that I call and I say stuff like that to, and they go, "Oh, I totally understand that." You
Right.
know what I mean?
It
And
lets
I'm
all the power of it away, pushes it, it's gone.
Yeah, yeah. All right. Well, that's good. Good suggestions and lots of stuff for me to be thinking about and working on and just taking my time. The other thing that I wanted to just say real quick was that I do those things like, I go and get my massage and I go and get my petty nanny. And I have this attitude about it that I don't like. It's kind of like my feelings are like, well, I'm going to go do these things because this is what I'm supposed to do so that I don't eat sugar.
Okay. I get that.
And it's not even like, it's almost like I feel some guilt and shame around doing healthy, good things for myself.
Oh, that's pretty normal. That's pretty normal. That makes a lot of sense. You are not worthy of that big
Yeah,
life.
like you don't deserve that. Like my mom used to say, "Who do you think you are?" That's what
Oh,
she
man,
used
we
to
used to have the
say.
same parents. You're getting too big for your britches. You're, that kinda thing.
Yeah, yeah. So and it's the things that I'm doing are fun. Well, the massage I had before I left on the trip was not fun. It was a deep tissue massage, and I hadn't seen him in like almost 3 weeks, and it was really painful. And then usually I feel good afterwards, but for 3 days I just hurt afterwards. So sometimes it's not fun, but it's good for you. All right. Well, thank you so much, Mike, for walking me through this and helping me. And, I just wanted to say that we did not really talk a lot before we started taping today. And so, this stuff is pretty raw and pretty, out there for both of us. So I appreciate everything that you do to help.
Well, maybe we should start doing that more because the spontaneity of and not that you have been withholding in any way, but, if we can get the exorcism of the pain of it all, then not that we need to get it on camera, but, and maybe report more on when it's happening for you, you know?
Yeah.
Let me ask you a quick question before we go is, does any of this ever happen in the 2 days you're on sugar? Does the remorse or the pain or the hurt or the crying, does that happen then?
No, it didn't happen a lot.
I wouldn't imagine it would.
No, it doesn't. It's kind of like when the eating disorder, when the binge is just running itself,
Right.
it's just going through the motions of, you know, the eating and just like a large part of me, which is getting bigger and bigger, by the way, is just waiting for it to be over. It's just like, oh my God, I can't. Because you're right. It wasn't fun. It wasn't pleasant. The first couple of bites maybe tasted okay, but then and now I'm so aware of the hyper, like the ultra processed food and how bad it is for your brain. And you're sitting there eating this stuff going, God, this is like increasing my risk of dementia. And, how good can it taste? And then they have all this crappy, shitty stuff in it, like vegetable oil. And
Yeah.
so, yeah.
All righty, hang in there. You're doing good. And again, I also actually want to know the answer to this, how you feel when I say, what was I going to say? You deserve this. You deserve this recovery. You deserve this weight loss. You deserve this health. You deserve this mental peace and clarity. How does that land? And do you have other people where they say that? And like you said, you call someone and you say, I can relate. But when someone is kind to you, how do you feel?
Yeah. Okay. So it lands great, right? It lands great. It's like, oh, this is so wonderful. Thank you. Yes, I do. I do deserve it. But when it's 2 o'clock in the morning and you're dark and it's quiet and you're in your own bed by yourself,
Uh,
you doubt.
and then
I doubt.
you want to
Yeah.
get up and shut it off, shut it down.
I doubt and I need to work on that.
Is there actually actual pain somewhere in your body when you have that doubt?
My heart, my heart kind of hurts a little sometimes.
Okay. So these are signals of it's time to return to the breath or, it's time
Yeah.
to,
And my throat will get kind of tight.
okay. Like you're about to tear up.
Well, like it's hard to breathe, maybe. Like it's kind of goes to the breath, like almost like a little panic or something.
Okay. So just be aware of those times. And
And I'll hold my breath. I'll find myself holding my breath.
do you do breath work at all?
I do, and even on our trip, we were doing some meditation every day. Yitka and I were.
Good.
My girlfriend, we were working on some meditation and Yeah, I have that. I work on.
All righty, I do have to run too, so I will talk with you soon.
Okay, sounds good. Thanks, everybody. Thanks for listening. We'll see you next time. Thanks, Mike.